Greetings to Madam Raina and my fellow classmates. We are from Group 4. We'll be explaining about public policies and microeconomic problems in Japan. In this topic, we will explain about the introduction, public policies of Japan, problem and method of solving inflation, problem and method of solving unemployment, and lastly, conclusion. Before we start our presentation, let me introduce my group members. Hello and good day to Madam Raina. I am Sharifa Aida Ashikin, student ID 2019245154, and I'll be explaining the introduction of Japan.
Greetings, madam. My name is Azlin Shazlina binti Roslan, student ID 2019843196, and I will be presenting about public policy in Japan.
Hello and greetings. I bid to Madam Raina. My name is Jasmine Laila binti Zulfika, student ID 2019884218, and for today's presentation, I will be presenting about the problem and method of solving inflation.
Hello and good day to Madam Raina. My name is Emily Marsha, student ID 2019425204. I will be explaining the problem and method of solving unemployment by Japan.
Hello and good day to Madam Raina. My name is Nur Atasha Amira binti Nurdin, student ID 2019295998. I will be summarized about economy in Japan.
As we know, Japan is one of the leading countries in economy development. Japan was ranked the second leading economy in the world, third largest by nominal GDP, and fourth largest in terms of purchasing power parity (PPP). In terms of GDP per capita, Japan was listed as the 28th in the world. Japan has a highly educated and hardworking workforce that comprises from a huge and affluent population, making this country being one of the world's largest consumer marketplace. Japan is one of the most innovative economies in the world, with the largest electronics industry and patent filing, automobile, machine tools, electronic equipment, steel and non-ferrous metals, chemicals, textile products, ships, and processed foods are among the key industries that contribute to Japan's economy. Japan is also known as the largest creditor in the world, with a leading public debt ratio. The country owns 13.7% of the world's private financial assets, estimated at $13.5 trillion, and has 54 Fortune 500 companies. However, the Japanese economy faces stiff competition from China and South Korea.
This policy brief discusses public policies in Japan, including regulatory laws and other forms of public measures which moderate each of the 8 dimensions of the quality of employment framework. Rather than discussing all public policies concerning employment in the country, this policy brief will highlight and concisely discuss the most significant legislation in order to provide a general introduction to current policies pertinent to quality of employment in contemporary Japan. Based on the syllabus that we have learned, that the public policy was classified into 2 policies, which is the fiscal policy and monetary policy. The definition of monetary policy is govern the regulation, availability, and cost of credit, whereas fiscal policy is govern government spending, tax, and debt. In addition, monetary policy is the set of measures done by a country's central bank to manage the money supply and achieve long-term economic growth. It may be classified as either expansionary or contractionary. Next, as Japan's central bank, the Bank of Japan decides and implements monetary policy in order to maintain price stability. This is due to the importance of price stability in serving as the foundation of the country's economic activity. Individuals and firms decide whether to consume or invest in a market economy based on the prices of goods and services. When prices fluctuate, individuals and firms find it difficult to make appropriate consumption and investment decisions, which can impact the efficient allocation of resources in the economy. For fiscal policy of Japan is considered a demand-side policy because it influences aggregate demand. For instance, government expenditure on education and development would help boost productive capacity while also increasing the labor force skill and knowledge. Next, Japan had been subjected to continuous deficit financing for approximately 18 years with disastrous results. Without repudiation or currency conversion, an intriguing and effective stabilization program has been launched. Furthermore, larger fiscal deficits were created by a significant increase in new spending on social welfare programs in the first half of the 1970s and on public investment in the second half of the 1970s, as well as a shortage of tax collection due to the economic slowdown.
So next, I will proceed with explaining about the problem and method of solving inflation. As you can see in this slide, the graph indicates the inflation rate in Japan from the year 2000 until the year 2019. Now, let me start with Japan's experience of deflation. In Japan, after the burst of large-scale asset bubble in the early 1990s, the economy decelerated significantly and the inflation rate declined gradually. The economy fell into deflation amid the successive collapse of major financial institutions in the late 1990s. Thereafter, except for some periods when commodity prices surged, the consumer price index inflation rate remained in negative territory for about 15 years. Next, I will proceed with the problems caused by Japan's deflation. The first problem that was encountered by the Japan's government are decreasing prices continue to put pressure on the Japanese labor market, causing the firm to reduce the employment in order to boost their profits. Since the prices were lower, once thought to be healthy for the Japanese economy, but the lower profit seems to cause difficulties for the firm to settle their debt, and some of them were forced into the bankruptcy. Not only that, banks that carry the loans of those heavily indebted corporate customers were also affected into bankruptcy, and the destabilization of the Japanese financial system occurred. Next, I will proceed with the method to overcome Japan's deflation. Struggling with deflation or declining consumer prices for more than a decade, Japan's Prime Minister at the time, Shinzo Abe, was on a quest to reverse the country's greatest economic issue. In one of Shinzo Abe's press conferences in 2013, he mentioned that triggering inflation is the key to reviving the growth in Japanese economy. Abenomics. It is the nickname for the economic policy that has been implemented by the government of Japan. Firstly, the aggressive monetary policy. On the 22nd January 2013, Japan's government and the Bank of Japan issued a joint statement in order to overcome deflation and achieve sustainable economic development. By implementing the aggressive monetary, the government expects the Bank of Japan to execute significant monetary easing as soon as possible to meet the target of the price stability that has been targeted by the Bank of Japan. In contrast to the previous attempt at monetary policy, which will primarily focus on buying short-term government bonds, the Bank of Japan is buying long-term government bonds and increasing the monetary base. Secondly, the fiscal consolidation. When the interest rate rises, the demand for the government bond increases. The government must finance its budget deficit regardless of the interest rate. As a result, in this scenario, it is very critical for Japan to lower its budget deficit through increasing tax income. Nevertheless, it is also very important for them to reduce the government spending. In order to reduce the expenditure of the government, the Japanese government postponed the retirement age and also the wage rate need to be based on the productivity rather than seniority. In conclusion, short-term fiscal policy has to be managed by the government in a flexible manner while showing a solid political commitment in restoring Japan's fiscal balance in a medium and long term. Last but not least, the third arrow of the Abenomics, policies for growth to stimulate private investment. There are many ways that has been implemented by the Japanese government to increase their economic growth. First, they increase the participation of women in their labor force. Since Japanese female has the lowest rate in labor participation, the Prime Minister of Japan thought that bringing women into the workforce is a way to solve the labor shortage problem in Japan. Secondly, under the long-term idea of Cool Japan, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry formed a new Creative Industries Promotion Office in June 2010 to promote cultural and creative industries as a strategic sector. The Japanese government has selected the cultural industries as one of the possible development areas. The Cool Japan Plan was implemented in order to harmonize various government activities and work with the corporate sector.
This is the unemployment rate chart in Japan from the year 1999 till the year 2020. Japan has lower unemployment than the other major industrial and rising countries. The Japanese labor ethics are world-renowned and linked to a strong commitment and ties to the company. Competitiveness among coworkers and loyalty to the firm are prevalent and encouraged, and working hours and overtime are considered excessive. Death caused by overwork in Japan is known as karshi. After the disastrous effect of World War II, Japan was able to recover economically and even rise to prominence among the world's top economies, owing in part to this attitude toward work and employment. Today, Japan is the leading importer and exporter in the globe. Moreover, although Japan is one of the 20 countries with the biggest share of the world's domestic output and one of the 20 with the greatest gross national product per capita, Japan is one of the world's 10th largest countries. Over the year, Japan has slowly solved their unemployment problems. This is because Japan has expedited the transition of its young residents from education to employment, as well as the efficient allocation of human resources to new industries. Three aspects of success have been recognized, which may provide important information to policymakers in today's emerging economies dealing with unemployment. Firstly, Japan handled the problem of a skill mismatch by creating a structure that allowed for the matching of expectation, rather than directly addressing the problem. Through the Employment Stabilization Offices, the government established institutional links between educational institutions and commercial businesses. These connections provide young job seekers with information about current labor demand and assist them in adjusting their career expectations in light of labor market conditions, while also allowing private firms, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, to recruit from the workforce across the country. Second, substantial teaching of job-oriented knowledge and skill was carried out by private firms in the form of in-firm training programs for new and early career employees. With some exceptions, the Japanese government's early attempts to develop public industrial education did not succeed because of the absence of mechanisms to feed skills requirements in new industries, including school curricula. On the other hand, the government's support to private firms through training subsidies effectively elevated the concerns of private firms, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, which had been hesitant about investing in training due to their fear that they would be unable to recoup the training costs. Third, although the education sector does not have enough capacity to narrow the skill mismatch itself, school curricula still contribute to the trainability of young people, especially the emphasis on professional ethics through the Confucian or filial piety, to give children the virtue of hard work. A kind of hard work is a good belief in itself. This type of education is believed to have created a group of potentially productive workers. Although the use of this potentially requires economic institutions that provide incentive systems. It can be concluded that Japan's experience can at least provide them with useful insight and help build local policy learning capacity. Due to advances in IT and artificial intelligence, some policies seem to be easier to implement today, while other policies may require tailored support measures to localize practices.
For conclusion, as we all know, Japan is a sophisticated country with great technology and well-behaved community. Nevertheless, Japan has been troubled by problems that have resulted in substantial changes to the country since its crisis decades ago. Therefore, to begin with, Japan has been struggling to be successful in controlling its economy despite confronting deflation by developing a new strategy known as Abenomics. And in terms of solving difficulties, the government controls the country's monetary and fiscal policies. Aside from that, one of the most important factors in ensuring economic stability and variety in Japan is to stabilize the sociological and economic environment. Since one of the country's major influences is society's lifestyles, the government needs to be emphasized with society's development if want to help increase the country's economy. That's all from us, Group 4. Thank you.